No, I'm not at all surprised by this. Jon Stewart complimented the Trump administration over their response to getting claims through for 9/11 first responders. Jon Stewart has been an active advocate for the first responders of 9/11, getting the benefits they need. And I'll say something too before we get into the story. I have tremendous respect for Jon Stewart, and I hope everyone realizes that he was from a different era before the culture war expanded and became this nonsensical and insane battle between even former liberals and the current Democratic and left-wing establishment, although they're at odds to an extent as well. I think Jon Stewart comes from a different time. I think he comes from a time where he would make fun of the right and Fox News and these other platforms, but it's not the same, right? The fake news today is just insane. They purposefully try to misconstrue what you say, pull things out of context. And I'm not saying Jon Stewart's innocent of all of that. I just think he was a different caliber. Things were better, and I have respect for Jon Stewart, especially for his willingness to approach this subject the way he is. So let's read the story. The Daily Wire is shocked. Did Jon Stewart seriously just compliment the Trump administration? The Trump Justice Department is doing an excellent job of administrating this program. They say something truly remarkable happened on Monday that few could ever have predicted. Former Daily Show host Jon Stewart actually complimented the Trump administration for its handling of an issue near and dear to his heart. I'm not surprised by this. I'm not. There are some people that I think absolutely can't get over themselves and are tribal, and they want to spew nonsense for the sake of getting the clicks and the traffic. I would actually point the finger at Colbert to a certain extent, and Trevor Noah. Colbert, to his credit, has criticized the left in some regards, but for the most part, he doesn't. He just goes hard at Trump. But that's the thing. Trump's the president, so they're going to play this game. However, they didn't for Obama, for the most part. But Jon Stewart, I trust him, especially in this regard. And wow, let's read this comment from him because he really, really just cuts straight through the BS. According to the Washington Examiner, Stewart commended the Trump Department of Justice for taking good care of 9/11 victims' compensation fund, an issue he has long passionately spoke out in favor of, routinely blasting both Democrats and Republicans alike for using it like a game of political football. Here we go. Are the cameras on? Is everybody on me? The Trump Justice Department is doing an excellent job administrating this program. The claims are going through faster, and the awards are coming through, Stewart said in a press conference on Capitol Hill. The Trump Justice Department. I don't know about anything else. I'm not going to comment on anything else, but that's why we're here in the problem that we're in, is the program works exactly like it's supposed to now. So it's Congress's job to fund it properly and let these people live in peace. When a reporter asked Jon Stewart about the Trump presidency, he declined to speak any further. There's no room to even speak of it, he said. I'm here to advocate for 9/11 first responders and their families and the survivors, and to get this program renewed properly. That's all we care about. The 9/11 Victims Compensation Fund ensures aid to victims of terrorist attacks along with their families. Stewart is pushing for funds for the program due to the 2020 expiration date. There's no reason to drag these people down here, Stewart said of 9/11 victims and loved ones who traveled down to Washington, D.C. to join him on the lobbying trip. It's bullshit. You know it and I know it, so let's stop the nonsense. According to The Hollywood Reporter, the comedian also invited and urged the media to pay more attention to the 9/11 first responders community, whom he says has been routinely ignored. Now, I want to talk a bit here real quick before moving on, because this one gets me really emotional. Bravo, Jon Stewart. Motherfucking bravo. I seriously mean this. I have tremendous, tremendous respect for Jon for coming out and saying it's bullshit. We're not going to do this. Trump is doing a good job. I don't care about what you want to talk about outside of what Trump is doing. If Jon Stewart, who has been one of the primary advocates to make sure this issue doesn't die, if he's coming out and saying Trump is doing a good job, then motherfuckers, Trump is doing a good job, plain and simple. This speaks nothing to anything else Trump administration is doing, but I want to make one very important point for Jon Stewart's activism and for the issue of 9/11 first responders. It is a fact that you could sacrifice your life. You could give everything you have to run full speed into a burning building, the firefighters who died on 9/11, and within a few years, they will forget you. They will ignore you, and you will live in suffering. You will die. Your dogs will die. Your family will be left wondering why no one cares. I was a teenager. I think I was like 14 when 9/11 happened. My dad was a firefighter. So I understood what it meant when somebody was willing to say this building was just hit by a plane. There's explosions. There's bursting out from the plane crash. There's debris flying everywhere. It's careening into the streets. It's hitting other buildings. And then you run full speed into that building, knowing you have to climb 70 flights of stairs, wearing all of this gear, into one of the most life-threatening situations. And then the building comes down on these people. And there are other people who showed up after the fact, breathing in toxic dust and fumes that they were told was safe. It's been a while, but it's my understanding that after 9/11, it was the EPA who said the air is safe to breathe. It wasn't. And people got lung cancer. I don't know the exact diseases. And admittedly, I'm not as staunch of an activist as Jon Stewart is. But I've often thought about this. I've thought about the risks and the sacrifices that first responders will often, put themselves in, and what it means a year later when no one remembers your name. In fact, I'm pretty sure there are supervillain storylines in comic books about people who sacrificed everything, crippled themselves, and their life is forever destroyed and their families' lives are destroyed. And within a few years, does anyone even remember your name? Do you get to be on that plaque? To a lot of people, no. Jon Stewart has made sure that doesn't happen in this regard. And there are a lot of people, and there are a lot of attacks, and there are a lot of instances that don't get the same recognition. I don't fault John for that. He lived in New York, and my understanding is he experienced, this firsthand, as did many New Yorkers. And to a lot of people who don't live in the city, who didn't experience, it's an afterthought. There are a lot of kids who are, today, look, there are teenagers who weren't alive for this, and they don't remember it. And they're going to grow up, and they're going to get jobs. They're going to start interning. They're going to go to college. There are kids today who graduated college who were so young when this happened, they just don't even comprehend it. And that's true for me in the historical moments of my life. And these people are going to start working in politics. They're going to start interning, and this will mean absolutely nothing to them. They would rather go after Trump no matter what and refuse to compliment him. But I give tremendous respect and to Jon Stewart. It's one of the most terrifying things that I think about. What does our society truly care about? What will they be focused on? And the reality is the most dangerous and important things are defending this country, saving lives, making sure you get to be free in the first place. And so when I hear stories about the utter disrespect for those who have sacrificed everything, lost limbs, lost their vision, lost their hearing, lost teeth even, just really sacrificed their body and put it on the line to make sure you can be safe, it really frustrates me, especially as someone who's traveled to other countries and seen how truly horrifying the world can be. I've seen people die. I have personally been shot at. We are in an extremely, or I should say relatively safe country because this, of course, happened in New York City. Something on this scale it's truly horrifying. And a lot of people talk about never forgetting, but the reality is, of course, people forget. And there are a lot of, look, I don't blame the kids for not knowing about it. But it really is something that I think about relatively often when it comes to overseas journalism, people who risk their lives, people who get, the stories of the people who have been killed in the Middle East and Syria, it's truly terrifying. The people risking their lives to make sure information can get out. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but there were a few journalists who went into Syria, many of whom died. And there were a group of Syrians who risked their lives to make sure the journalists could get this information out of the country, so that people knew what was happening. And many of these people died, and the journalists, one of the journalists eventually made it out with the photos, with video, etc. Will we remember those people who sacrificed their lives for others? And I think it's a sad reminder when we hear stories and we hear what Jon Stewart is talking about. The media doesn't care. They really don't care. And it really makes me angry. It makes me very emotional. What do they do when Jon Stewart wants to bring this up? They try to bring up the Trump presidency. Jon Stewart, who wants to give an event to 9/11 first responders and their families, has to straight up say, there is no reason to drag these people down here. It's bullshit. You know it. I know it. Let's stop the nonsense. Hell fucking yes. And we can look. So this is the Hollywood Reporter. The Hollywood Reporter talks about the issue, but it doesn't get directly into Jon Stewart praising the Trump administration for doing this. But cut through the bullshit, straight up. Jon Stewart willing to recognize Trump doing a good job on this. I don't care who's doing a good job on this. I care that the people who struggle to breathe, whose lives have been destroyed by what happened, 18 years ago, or about 17 and a half years ago, I want to make sure that we are doing what we can to protect them. And I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. I personally would vote, and I would put whatever I could. out there to make sure that this issue is highlighted and that these people are being taken care of. Of all the things we could advocate for, of all the government spending we can advocate for, this is what should come first. The people who are dying or suffering because they wanted to make sure other people had a chance to live or rescued from that rubble. But of course, the Hollywood Reporter does bring up, they tried, bringing up the Trump presidency. They want to get Stewart to give him that soundbite, that smear, that slam. He said, so I did talk about this, but I want to bring it up again in the Hollywood Reporter. When asked by a reporter for his impression of Donald Trump's presidency, he demurred. There's no room to even speak of it. I'm here to advocate for 9/11 first responders and their families and the survivors and to get this program renewed properly. That's all we care about. Bravo. He said, in a broader critique of the media industry, Stewart said, the model is based on conflict. I'm talking about the 24 hours. Print, I think, is a different animal. And generally, especially non-pure internet print is generally pretty sober and has a sense of proportion. Internet culture is clickbait. So what's done is the 24 hours are the nuclear reactor. They generate the conflict content. Then the internet comes in and they pick out the moments, the gold, the ore of the conflict, the real, like most clickbaity, most volatile moment, and they amplify it and they skew the picture. That's how the climate continues to feed itself. It's a conflictinator. But that's what it's based on. And so if the system is incentivized to that, and that's where the money is, it's going to be very hard to get to them to generate the kind of, and why this doesn't qualify for that, I don't know. So look, this video can fall into that critique from Jon Stewart. So I'll end by saying this. I don't care about, for the sake of this video, who the politician is, who the president is. I just don't. This video is, let's make sure we can keep advocacy for 9/11 first responders and first responders in general at the forefront of what really, really matters. And I think there are a lot of people who miss that. They don't understand how things can really, really be bad. So hopefully, if there's anything I can say for this video, is that it's helping amplify Jon Stewart's message. It's helping to make sure that first responders, particularly the 9/11 first responders, are going to be in the minds of people. If there's some conflict in the media, like what they're reporting on, how they asked him about Jon Stewart, how they asked him about Trump, and how I'm commenting on that. If that conflict can shed more light, inadvertently, albeit, onto the 9/11 first responders to make sure they get the attention they deserve, I'm all for it. So I'll leave it there. Stick around. I'll have another video up at 4 p.m. on my main channel, youtube.com/TimCastNews. YouTube.com/TimCast 4 p.m. I'll see you there.